Let me ask you something strange. If someone handed you $1,000 right now, not as a loan, not with strings attached, just yours, what would you actually do with it? Most people, if they're honest, would say pay something off, maybe grab something they've been eyeing for a while, maybe split it between both. Very few people, and I mean a genuinely small percentage, would sit down, open a brokerage account, and put it to work. And that's not a character flaw. That's not laziness. That's not stupidity. That's just how most of us were never taught to think about money. Here's the funny part, and I say funny because it's actually kind of absurd when you think about it. Most of us spend about 16 years in school. 16 years of exams, essays, algebra, history, biology. And somewhere in all of that, not a single class explains how compound interest works on your own savings account. Nobody sat you down and said, here's what happens to your money if you wait 10 years to start investing versus starting today. Nobody showed you that math. So today, that's exactly what we're going to do. No hype, no 10 steps to financial freedom, no motivational speeches. Just the math, the psychology, and a clear picture of what's actually happening to your money right now and what could be happening instead. Let's talk about Marcus. Marcus is 26. He lives in a mid-sized city. Could be Chicago, could be Manchester, could be Lyon. It doesn't really matter. The story is the same across most of the developed world. He graduated a few years ago, landed a decent job in marketing or tech support or admin, something respectable, something he worked for. He earns about $52,000 a year before taxes. After federal taxes, state taxes, Social Security, or in Europe, national insurance, pension contributions, income tax, Marcus takes home roughly $3,400 a month, maybe $3,500 on a good month. That sounds like a livable income, and it is, technically. His rent is $1,350. That's not luxury, that's just the market rate for a one-bedroom in a city where the jobs are. His car payment, because the bus doesn't reach his office and there's no reliable metro, is $310 a month. Car insurance, $120. Groceries, utilities, phone bill, roughly $450 combined. Student loan minimum payment, $280. That's already $2,510 gone before Marcus has eaten at a restaurant, bought a birthday gift, gone to a doctor, or done anything that makes life feel like actual living. He has about $890 left over each month. And here's where it gets interesting. Because $890 sounds like breathing room. It feels like surplus. It feels like the part of the month where you finally get to make a choice. But Marcus doesn't invest, not because he's irresponsible, not because he's reckless, but because every month something happens to that $890 before he ever gets the chance to think clearly about it. A dinner out here, a small online purchase there, a weekend trip because honestly he needed it, a subscription he forgot to cancel, an unexpected expense because unexpected expenses aren't actually unexpected, they happen every single month just in different shapes. And by the 28th of the month, Marcus has maybe $60 left, sometimes less. He tells himself he'll start investing next month when things settle down, when he gets a raise, when he pays off this one card. And here's the truth nobody told Marcus. Next month is structurally identical to this month.
Let's slow down and just look at some numbers. Real ones. Boring ones. The kind that don't get clicks but quietly determine the entire shape of your financial life. Marcus is 26. Let's say he starts investing $200 a month. Not $890, not his entire surplus, just $200. That's roughly the cost of 2 restaurant dinners and a streaming subscription. He puts it into a broad index fund, something like a total market ETF or an S&P 500 tracker. Not a specific stock, not crypto, not something his coworker told him about, just the market, broadly, consistently. The historical average annual return of the S&P 500, inflation adjusted over the last 50 years, sits around 7%. Some years it's negative, some years it's 25%. But the average, over time, over decades, is roughly 7%. $200 a month at 7% annual return. After 10 years, approximately $34,000. After 20 years, approximately $104,000. After 30 years, approximately $243,000. After 35 years, so Marcus at age 61, approximately $350,000. From $200 a month, that's $2,400 a year. Over 35 years, Marcus contributed $84,000 of his own money. The rest, over $266,000, came from compound growth, from interest earning interest, from doing nothing except not touching it. Now let's say Marcus waits, not forever, just 10 years. He starts at 36 instead of 26. Same $200 a month, same 7%. By 61, he'd have roughly $162,000. The 10-year delay cost him nearly $190,000. He didn't lose that money in a bad investment. He didn't gamble it. He didn't make a single wrong financial decision. He just waited. This is what people mean when they talk about time being the most valuable asset in investing. They don't mean it as a motivational phrase. They mean it as arithmetic. But here's the question Marcus and most people never get asked. Why didn't he just start? He had $890 in theoretical surplus. $200 isn't even a quarter of that. So why didn't it happen? The answer isn't financial. It's psychological. There's a concept in behavioral economics called present bias. It's not a character flaw. It's not unique to people who are bad with money. It's a feature of the human brain, evolved over tens of thousands of years, that consistently values what's available now over what's available later. Your brain, left to its natural tendencies, treats a reward today as dramatically more valuable than a larger reward in 20 years. Not slightly more valuable, dramatically more. This is why Marcus buys the jacket. Not because he doesn't care about his future, he does, but his brain, your brain, my brain, everyone's brain, is structurally wired to feel the jacket now and only abstractly imagine the investment account later. The retirement account doesn't send him a notification. It doesn't give him that small chemical hit of a delivered package. It just sits there, invisible, doing quiet, invisible work. There's also something called the ambiguity effect, which is the brain's preference for a known outcome over an unknown outcome, even when the unknown outcome is statistically better. Marcus knows with certainty that buying something feels good today. He does not know with certainty that his index fund will be worth $350,000 in 35 years. Even though the historical probability strongly suggests it, the brain doesn't process probability well. It processes certainty. So it chooses the jacket. And then there's a third layer, which is perhaps the most powerful of all, and it's called decision fatigue. Marcus makes several hundred small decisions every single day. What to eat, how to respond to that work email, whether to take the highway or the back road, what to watch tonight. By the time he sits down in the evening with his $890 technically available, his capacity for deliberate financial decision-making is genuinely depleted. Investing requires a deliberate decision. It requires you to open an account, choose a fund, transfer money, and not touch it. That's 4 or 5 steps, all of which require willpower. Scrolling and spending requires almost none. This isn't an excuse, it's a diagnosis. And once you understand the diagnosis, you can actually do something about it. Because the financially intelligent response to present bias and decision fatigue isn't willpower, it's automation.
Elise is 27. She earns almost exactly the same as Marcus. Same city, same general lifestyle, same pressures. But Elise does one thing differently.
On the day her paycheck lands, before she pays rent, before she buys groceries, before she does anything, $200 moves automatically into her brokerage account. She set it up once, 18 months ago, on a quiet Sunday afternoon. It took about 40 minutes, including the time she spent second-guessing herself. Since then, she has thought about it almost never. This is the core behavior of people who build wealth over time. Not genius, not income, not luck, though luck plays a role for some. The core behavior is this. They make the decision once and then remove future decisions from the equation. There's a name for this principle in behavioral finance, paying yourself first. But it sounds like advice, so let me instead describe what it actually does mechanically. When Elise's $3,400 arrives, her brain experiences $3,200 as her income, not $3,400. The $200 has already left. It's gone before her brain has had the chance to want anything. There's no decision being made. There's no willpower being spent. The money simply isn't there to spend. Now contrast that with Marcus, whose brain sees $3,400 arrive, spends 28 days making micro-decisions with it, and arrives at $60 wondering where it went. Same salary, same city, same general lifestyle. The difference is structural, not motivational. Elise also does something else that's worth noticing. She doesn't watch her investment account every week. She doesn't check whether the market is up or down on a Tuesday afternoon. She invested in a broad index fund, a total market ETF, and she treats it with the same emotional energy she gives her electricity bill. It exists, it runs, it does its job. She doesn't narrate it. This is actually counterintuitive for most people because we're taught by financial media, by social media, by the general culture of money that investing requires active attention, that you should be watching, reacting, optimizing. But for the average person building long-term wealth, the research is consistent. Frequent intervention tends to reduce returns, not improve them. The investor who checks their account daily tends to sell during dips out of anxiety and miss recoveries. The investor who checks quarterly or annually tends to stay the course and capture the full long-term return. Benign neglect in this particular context is a strategy. Let's talk about something that doesn't get enough attention in these conversations. Marcus has $23,000 in student loan debt at an interest rate of 6.5%. He pays the minimum, $280 a month. That's the responsible thing to do, right? He's not defaulting, he's not ignoring it. But here's what that actually means mathematically. At minimum payments, Marcus will take approximately 11 years to pay off that $23,000, and in that time, he will pay roughly $14,200 in interest alone. He borrowed $23,000. He will repay closer to $37,000. Now, and this is where it gets genuinely interesting, Marcus sometimes thinks about whether he should pay extra on his loans before he starts investing. It's a reasonable instinct. Get rid of the debt first, start clean. But let's look at the math side by side. His student loan costs him 6.5% per year in interest. If he pays it off aggressively, he earns a guaranteed 6.5% return because every dollar he pays down saves him 6.5% annually. A broad market index fund historically returns around 7% annually on average. The difference between 6.5% and 7% is half a percentage point. But here's what that small gap conceals. The student loan payoff is guaranteed. The index fund return is probabilistic, likely, historically supported, but not guaranteed. So which does Marcus choose? The honest answer, and this is what actual financial planning looks like, is that it depends. It depends on his interest rate. It depends on his emergency fund. It depends on whether his employer offers a 401k match. Because if Marcus's employer matches his 401k contributions up to 3%, which many American employers do, then not contributing at least 3% is the equivalent of leaving free money on the table. That match is an immediate 100% return. No index fund competes with that. In Europe, the equivalent conversation often centers around ISAs in the UK, PEA accounts in France, or company pension matching schemes. The mechanism differs. The logic is identical. Step 1, capture the free match if it exists. Step 2, build a small emergency buffer. Step 3, then decide between aggressive debt payoff and investing based on the interest rate. This isn't a trick, it's just priority ordering, and most people never think through it because nobody taught them the sequence. Here's something worth sitting with for a moment. The financial system, and I mean this not conspiratorially, just structurally, is designed to extract value from people who don't understand how it works and to reward people who do. Credit cards charge between 18 and 29% annual interest on carried balances. Student loan servicers earn more money the longer you take to repay. Subscription services auto-renew because the companies know that cancellation requires active effort and most people won't bother. None of this is secret. It's all in the fine print. But fine print only works if people don't read it. And people don't read it because they were never taught why they should or what they were looking for. A $4,000 credit card balance at 22% APR, paying minimums only, will take approximately 14 years to pay off and cost around $5,800 in interest. That's $5,800 paid to a company for the service of borrowing $4,000 for a period of time. That $5,800 isn't punishing anyone. It isn't targeting the poor. It's just mathematics, applied to people who didn't know, or forgot, or decided to deal with it later. The financially intelligent person looks at a credit card differently, not as spending power, as a 30-day interest-free loan, which is exactly what it is if paid in full each month. Used this way, it's neutral, possibly mildly useful for purchase protection and points. Used as a borrowing tool with a carried balance, it becomes one of the most expensive forms of debt available to a private individual. The product looks the same either way. The card is the same card. The difference is only in how it's understood. So let's come back to the beginning. Not with a list of steps, not with a plan you'll screenshot and forget, just with a clear picture of what we actually looked at today. We looked at Marcus, who isn't irresponsible, who isn't reckless, who earns a real income and has real expenses and real pressures, and we saw that his money was disappearing not because of one big mistake, but because of the accumulated weight of small, structurally invisible ones. We looked at what $200 a month actually becomes over 35 years when you leave it alone, and we saw that the single biggest variable in that equation isn't how much you earn, it's when you start. We looked at the psychology, present bias, decision fatigue, ambiguity, and we saw that the solution isn't to try harder or want it more. The solution is to make the decision once and automate it, so that your brain never gets the chance to spend the money before it's invested. We looked at debt, student loans, credit cards, and we saw that not all debt is equal, and that the sequence of decisions matters more than any single decision in isolation. And we looked at the system, not with anger, just with clarity, and we saw that it rewards people who understand how it works and quietly charges everyone else. None of this required a finance degree. None of this required a high income. None of this required you to sacrifice your quality of life in any meaningful way. It required about 40 minutes on a Sunday and the decision to start today instead of next month. Because next month, and I say this with genuine warmth, not judgment, next month is structurally identical to this month. If this was useful, not inspiring, just useful, consider subscribing. We put out videos like this regularly. No hype, no hustle culture, no fake urgency. Just clear thinking about money in a world that profits from your confusion. See you in the next one.